There's an incredible sense of pride and self-confidence that you experience from being productive, from knowing that you got up early in the morning and you took care of business throughout the day. It's a feeling like no other, which is why it's not a surprise that so many people out there are promoting this idea of living a productive life. Personally, I haven't always been a very productive person. In fact, I used to be very lazy. I would spend so much time sitting in front of a TV, and I kid you not, hundreds upon hundreds of hours playing video games. Now, I'm not saying that playing video games is a bad thing necessarily, but it wasn't what I wanted out of my life. And ultimately what made me want to change was that I was incredibly unhappy with my life being that way. So as anyone who's ever been in this position before, I started to work on it. And it was a slow process. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it happened overnight, because that's definitely not the truth. But I will tell you that that tiny spark of simply wanting to change my life for the better created a domino effect that would ultimately change my life forever. So my goal in this video is to give you all the tips, tricks, and strategies that I've utilized to become a productive person so that you can do the same. Now, there's a couple things that we want to understand first. One is that it ultimately comes down to discipline and momentum. The discipline is there to get you started and to ultimately keep you going during those days where you just don't feel like it. And then the momentum is there to help you carry that on. And ultimately, once you tap into that momentum, productivity becomes an ease. And while it's also important to note that momentum doesn't last forever, but this is why discipline is so important, because when you start to lose a little bit of momentum, the discipline is there to help get you back on track. Think of it like a train. It takes a lot of energy to get going, but once it does, you better watch out. Another important thing for us to understand before we really get into the nitty-gritty is that ultimately it's all about taking small steps. When I first got to the point where I wanted to change and be a productive person, I jumped into it full force, but ultimately it didn't last, and I ended up going back to where I'd started. I mean, I didn't have any guidance, no mentors, nobody to point me in a certain direction. It was literally just me figuring things out on my own. So I made a lot of mistakes along the way, and this one in particular took me a long time to learn. And you may be able to connect with this in your life. Maybe you're the same sort of person. You get really, really excited when you have this new thing that you're interested in and you want to accomplish and achieve. You just go at it with full force and vigor. And you probably do well for a few days, few weeks, or maybe even months if you're lucky, but ultimately you end up burning out and you go back to where you started. You see, the body likes homeostasis. Now, what I mean by that is that it doesn't like change. It likes things as they are. It likes to keep things as they are. Now, you might be thinking, well, resistance is good. We need resistance to grow. Yes, that is true, but too much resistance can actually be detrimental. Think of it in terms of teaching a child how to ride a bike. If the first thing you do is put that child on a bike without training wheels, it's gonna be too difficult. The child could get hurt, and because they will inevitably fail over and over and over again, it could cause them to lose complete interest and not really ever wanna ride a bike again. But if you start slow and you put them on a bike with training wheels and let them learn from there, then it will be just difficult enough for them to push them a little bit, but so that they can actually start to see results. And in turn, this is going to boost the child's self-belief, self-confidence, and ultimately they'll get to the point where they can ride a bike without training wheels with no problems. So just understand that drastic change is too much of a shock on the body. It must be gradual. So those are just two things I wanted to cover before we get into the real details. You really want to understand these things before you want to make a change in your life and become a productive person. Now, starting off, the first strategy here, and something that's been a mainstay in my life for so many years, is using a to-do list or a daily task list. I understand that a lot of people hate to-do lists. There tends to be a real negative connotation about them. But I really do think that that stems from the specific context in which to-do lists are used. A lot of times when people talk about to-do lists, it's in regards to things like their job or random things that they don't want to do. But to-do lists don't have to be a bad thing. Firstly, you can call them whatever you want. You can call them your daily goals, or you can call them your daily steps towards greatness, whatever you want. And the power of having a list for things to do is that it keeps you on track. It keeps the needle moving forward. Because trust me, from my own experience, it's very easy to get off track and go back to your old ways, especially if you're just starting out. So how you keep track of the things that you need to do is ultimately up to you. You can put them in your phone, you can write them in a notepad, computer, however you want to do it, whatever makes most sense for you. Now, personally, I like to put them in my calendar in my phone. That way, honestly, I use that thing every single day, and that way I can see everything that I should get done. In addition to that, I'll actually have it send me reminders of, hey, you should start working on this, or hey, this is actually due. But I'm sure there's also other apps out there that you can use, or other different things that you can utilize for this. It's really just up to you. And remember, the point isn't to bog yourself down with random things to do to just keep yourself busy, but rather to keep the needle moving forward towards your goals. Which brings me to my next point. In order to really live a productive life and be excited about it and enjoy the process, you have to make sure that the things that you're working for are things that you are passionate about, things that you love, and are goals that you actually want to accomplish. So you'll have to determine what sort of goals do you have? What sort of things do you want to accomplish and reach? And this really comes down to knowing yourself, getting in touch with who you are. It's something that I've talked a lot about on this channel. Now, assuming that you already have some goals, you'll want to break those goals down into smaller goals. And the reason why we want to do this is that rather than having this massive goal that almost seems unattainable, you want to break it down into these little chunks that you can accomplish along the way that'll get you to that main goal. Because if you're standing at the base of Mount Everest, it just looks daunting. But if you say, oh, hey, I can make it up to that rock, or I can make it up to that ledge, or I can make it up to that point right there, it makes the process much easier. And then eventually, you're at the top of the mountain. So let's say, for example, you have a goal that you want to reach in a year. You want to break it down into monthly goals for all 12. You'll want to also break it down into weekly goals for all 52. And ideally, you'll also want to have daily goals that you need to reach. So you have to think about that. Where do you want to be in 6 months? Write that down. Where do you want to be in 3 weeks? Write that down. Where do you want to be on day 4? Write that down. And you want to keep track of all of these. And ultimately, they're going to help you to get towards that major goal. And you also want to understand that things are going to change. You'll have to make adjustments. So you don't necessarily need to get detailed if you want to reach something in a year. You don't need to break it down into 365 each individual daily goals. But maybe for the next week or 2 or 3, you may want to have daily goals. Just understand that things may need to adjust, but that's okay. If things do need to change along the way, just keep adjusting them so that you can eventually reach that major goal. So reaching all of these smaller goals will ultimately boost your self-confidence, just like the child learning to ride a bike. Moving on to the next strategy that I use is something called visualization. If you're not sure what that is, ultimately it's the idea of picturing yourself accomplishing something or overcoming challenges. So you envision yourself reaching your goals. You picture what it's going to feel like, who's going to be around you, the setting that you're going to be in, really feeling it internally. This does a few things, but one of the primary things that it does is that it keeps you excited and it keeps you pushing that needle forward. It's a powerful tool that you should start using. It's something that I've been doing every morning for a really long time now, and it's made a huge shift in my life. Now, there's another key aspect of productivity that I really haven't heard anybody else talk about. And what I'm referring to is your mindset. One of the most important things that got me from being a lazy and unproductive person is that I started to see myself as a productive person. I started to see myself as somebody that gets things done. And this is crucial for really any goal that you want to achieve. This is going to happen naturally anyway, because the more you act in a certain way, the more that you're going to see yourself as that type of person. But you can speed up the process by incorporating something called words of affirmation. So just like visualization, words of affirmation can also be utilized every single day. The way that it works is that you take a certain statement like, I am a productive person, and you repeat it to yourself several times, preferably looking in a mirror if you have one, either in the morning or at a certain point of your day. And what you'll notice is that as you begin to tell yourself these things over and over and over again, you'll start to believe it and you'll start to act that way. And this is so critical because we act in accordance to how we see ourselves and in accordance to how others see us. So if we see ourselves as productive people, then we will begin to act productively. Now, there's something I want to mention, and it's kind of a side note, but within this community of personal development, there's a lot of talk of grinding. It's this notion that if you want something, you have to grind it out every single day, all day, every minute of every hour that you have. Keep grinding, no sleep, keep going. And though it is true that you need to work hard to accomplish things, and some things do take a long time, there has to be a time for rest. You cannot work nonstop because it'll suck the energy out of you. Not just that, but it'll decrease your productivity. It'll decrease your level of quality that you put into your work. And you can even get to the point where you burn out from all of this. And I say this because I've been that person for a really long time now, almost up until recently, constantly grinding, constantly working, go, 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 go. And what I noticed is that it was just continuing to put so much stress on me physically and mentally. But ultimately, I realized that everything is best in moderation. Yes, you should work hard for those things that you want, but you also must set time off to relax. At the end of the day, your health is most important. So if the way that you're living your life is ultimately causing you too much stress or causing other health issues, then you may need to reassess your actions. Finally, I just want to end with this last notion, which is that throughout your journey of becoming a more productive person, you should never compare yourself to other people. Once you start to compare yourself to others, it can be detrimental to your success. It'll bring on things like stress, which we've already talked about, and even insecurity. So instead, compare yourself to how you were yesterday. Are you making strides in the right direction? Are you getting better? And if you are, then praise yourself. Do this every single day. Tell yourself how proud of you are. Tell yourself how amazing you are, how smart you are, how you've been getting so much better, how so much more productive you are, how so much more confident in yourself you are. Tell yourself, show yourself how much of a fan you are of you. And ultimately, that is it. I know this video has been a bit long, but I really wanted to delve deep into this topic of productivity because it's been such a big part of my life, and there's a lot of little things that I've utilized to help me get to where I am today, and I would love to just share that. And remember that even though it is a long journey, that doesn't mean that you can't start today and start making those changes and improvements today. So let's wrap this up. I really do appreciate you checking out the video. If you learned something, consider hitting that like button and also consider hitting that subscribe button as well. Comment below if you have any thoughts or questions. I really do look forward to connecting with all of you. And as always, improve your body, improve your mind, improve the world.